Emily Ha had always known her story didn't begin in America. There was a subtle distance in her parents' smiles when they spoke of Seoul. They never lied to her, never hid the truth, but they spoke about her past like it belonged to someone else, someone they met briefly and brought home, not someone who had once been left behind in a hospital crib with nothing but a name tag. Hayun Mai, that name still lived in her passport, buried beneath the layers of her American identity. Emily Ha was who she had become, a 25-year-old graduate of Columbia Law, working at a mid-sized corporate firm in Chicago, known for her fast mind and steady voice. But Hayun Mi, she was a ghost, a sealed folder in her parents' office drawer, a handful of hospital records in Hangul she couldn't read. Until now, the letter had come in mid-February, postmarked from Gangnam. Her hands had trembled when she read it. There was no return address, only a single line in Korean on the back flap: "Forgiveness begins with truth." Inside, a woman named Yoon Seon had written in elegant, formal Korean. The letter had been translated by her father's old friend from their church community. Emily had waited until she was alone to read the English version, sitting cross-legged on the floor of her tiny studio apartment, her back against the fridge. Yoon Seon was her mother, her biological mother. She had written that she had searched for Emily for years, after being told she was better off not knowing, that her father, Emily's grandfather, had been a respected businessman in Bizen with very clear ideas of lineage and honor, that he had forced her to give up the child she bore out of wedlock, that she had obeyed because she was 20 and powerless. She ended the letter with one request: "Please let me see you once before I am told to explain everything." Emily had stared at the letter for nearly an hour. Then she packed it into a drawer and went on with her life. For 3 weeks, but the letter never really stayed in the drawer. It stayed in her mind, in the mirror, in her coffee cup, in the way her name was called during meetings. She booked a flight in March. The plane descended into Incheon under a gray-blue sky, the kind that made the city feel like it was holding its breath. Emily sat by the window, her palms clammy against the armrest, watching the outlines of bridges and apartment towers sharpen through the mist. Her Korean was poor, her knowledge of the culture outdated. Her last trip to Korea had been as a baby, strapped to her adoptive father's chest. But now she was returning not as a daughter of tourists, but as a question demanding an answer. Her parents had been supportive. Her mother cried when she hugged her goodbye. Her father had given her an old silver cross necklace he said she used to chew on as a toddler. "Don't come back with more pain than you left with," he said. It wasn't a warning. It was a prayer. Emily had arranged to stay at a modest Hanok guest house near Bukhan. Her biological mother had offered to meet her on the second day of her trip in private, at a tea house in Insadong. She almost didn't go, but at 3:55 p.m. the next day, she stepped into the quiet room where a slender woman in a pale lavender blouse sat waiting. The woman stood up as soon as Emily entered. Her face was framed by soft waves of black hair, streaked with silver. Her eyes were deeply set, and there was a familiar shape in the arch of her brows. "Emily." The word came in English, halting and soft. Emily blinked. She had imagined anger, resentment, even coldness. But what she saw was remorse, and something else: hope. "I didn't come here for forgiveness," Emily said slowly. The woman nodded. "I came here to give it, not ask for it." Emily sat. They spoke for nearly 2 hours. She learned that her father, her biological father, had been a selfish, charming man who left within weeks of her birth, that her grandfather had disowned her mother, that he had forbidden anyone from speaking of the child, that he had used money, shame, and social standing to bury her existence. "He is still alive," Yoon Seon said finally, "but not for long." Emily looked up. "He wants to see you. He doesn't know your name, only that you exist, and that I never married." Emily exhaled sharply. "Why now?" "Because he has no heirs, and because he wants to die believing his legacy is intact." Emily let that sit between them. Then she said, "Tell him I'll come." But not for him. That night, she lay in the small wooden guest house room, staring at the wooden beams above her. In the darkness, Hayun Mi stirred. Emily had come home, but not to remember. To reclaim. The road to Bizen curled like a sleeping dragon, winding between coastal ridges and silent forests. Emily sat in the back seat of a hired car, her suitcase beside her, fingers clenched in her lap. Her biological mother, Yoon Seon, sat in the front, giving sparse directions in Korean to the driver. They hadn't spoken much since the tea house. Emily wasn't sure what else to say. and Yoon Seon seemed afraid of saying too much. The silence was not hostile, just full. When they finally reached the city outskirts, it was almost dusk. The skyline glimmered in amber light, and the air smelled like salt and pine. The driver turned onto a steep private road lined with stone lanterns and ginkgo trees. At the top stood a traditional Korean house, elegant, spacious, and old. Its wooden gates bore the kind of wear that whispered legacy. "He built this house when he was younger than you are now," Yoon Seon said as the car rolled to a stop. "For the family he believed he deserved." Emily didn't answer. She stepped out, the gravel crunching under her shoes. Her breath came slower. Now, not fear, something heavier, like standing at the edge of something sacred and cruel at once. A housekeeper met them at the door, bowing politely before leading them through the wide hammock courtyard and into a side room. A nurse stood just outside the inner chamber. "He has good days and bad," the nurse said to Yoon Seon in a hushed voice. "Today is in between." Emily could smell antiseptic and aging wood. Yoon Seon turned to her. "He won't recognize you, but he knows someone is coming. He wants to speak to you alone." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Alone?" "Yes," he asked. Before Emily could respond, the nurse slid open the door. Inside, the room was dim, but not cold. The sliding paper windows were slightly open, letting in a breeze from the pine-covered hill beyond. A figure sat upright in a wooden-framed bed, thin but regal. The man's face was carved in hard angles, sharp cheekbones, a rigid jaw, and brows that once intimidated boardrooms and parliament halls. His eyes, though faded, held clarity. "Come," he said in Korean. "Sit." Emily obeyed. Slowly, wordlessly, he studied her for a long time. It wasn't recognition, it was calculation. "You don't look like your mother," he finally said. "That's good." Emily felt her jaw tighten. "What do you want from me?" she asked, switching to English. The man smirked. "Not your language, but I understand." He leaned back slightly, his hand resting on a blanket embroidered with the Ha family crest. "I am dying," he said simply. Emily said nothing. "I built everything you see. That land, the buildings, the shares, the influence, it is all mine. I made it with discipline, with sacrifice, and silence," Emily added sharply. His eyes flickered. "You think your existence was a secret I kept for shame?" "It was protection. For the name. For the bloodline." Emily clenched her fists. "Then why call me now?" He looked at her long and slow. "Because the name will die otherwise." Emily's heart pounded. She didn't expect him to be kind. But this was something else. A transaction. A legacy looking for a signature. "You don't get to erase me and then use me," she whispered. He smiled thinly. "You are of this blood whether you accept it or not. The law does not need affection, only lineage." Emily stood. "I came because I needed to see the man who could break his own daughter, who could abandon a child and sleep soundly." He coughed, a dry, hollow sound, but his voice remained steady. "You think you know abandonment, but you know nothing of duty." Emily turned to leave. "Your mother still loves you," he said behind her. "That is her weakness." She paused at the door, looked back. "No," she said. "That's her strength." That night, Emily stood alone at the edge of the property, looking out over the city lights. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She planned. There would be no inheritance, not without a fight. And this time, she would not walk away. Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay on the guest house's floor mattress, listening to the wind press against the old wooden frame. Her mind ran in loops, echoing her grandfather's voice, her mother's trembling hands, the look in the nurse's eyes when she closed the door behind her. There was a kind of mourning in her bones, but it wasn't for death. It was for a name that had become a cage. In the morning, she made a choice. She dressed in clean jeans and a black turtleneck, tied her hair back, and walked down to the guest house's courtyard where Yoon Seon was waiting. "I want to see a lawyer," Emily said. Her mother blinked. "A lawyer? I want to know what rights I have under Korean inheritance law. If he plans to leave me nothing, I want that in writing. And if he dares to leave me something, I want to be ready." Yoon Seon looked at her daughter like she was seeing her for the first time. They met with an attorney in a modest office tucked behind a coffee shop in Bisan's financial district. His name was Mr. Park, an older man with calm eyes and a tidy desk. He listened without interruption as Emily told her story in simple, deliberate English. "I'm not here for revenge," she said finally. "I just want clarity. If he's going to use my name to preserve his empire, Then I deserve to understand where I stand, Mr. Park nodded. Under current South Korean law, if a person dies intestate, that is, without a will, property is distributed equally among direct descendants. In the absence of a spouse or children, surviving children from any relationship have legal standing, including you. What if there is a will? Then it depends on what's written. He can exclude you, but not if the court finds coercion or fraud. Emily leaned forward. Can we challenge it? Mr. Park gave a slow, diplomatic smile. We can prepare for all outcomes. Back at the guest house, Emily sat alone at the kitchen table with a cup of barley tea. She stared at the reflection of her face in the glass window. Not the version shaped by America, the other one. The girl who had been given away. Yoon Seon stepped in quietly, holding an envelope. He wanted you to have this. Emily opened it. Inside was a document, a revised will draft. Her name was on it. So was a clause. Conditional beneficiary. If you take the Ha name legally, her mother translated. If you sign the papers before he dies. Emily folded the paper slowly. I'm not a bargain to be written into history, she said. Yoon Seon nodded. Then don't sign for him. Sign for you. Emily looked up. What if I don't want any of it? Then walk away. But do it knowing what you gave up. That night, Emily sat beneath the paper lamp in her room, pen in hand. The document unfolded before her. Not a storm outside. The storm was in her, and it was quiet, but not for long. 2 weeks passed. Emily remained in Bizen, living out of the guest house and dividing her time between Mr. Park's office and long, quiet walks along Houndy's empty shoreline. She didn't call her parents. She didn't reach out to friends. The world felt paused, held in place by the weight of a name she hadn't chosen. The will became real. Her grandfather signed it the first Monday of April. The ink barely dried before a courier delivered a notarized copy to Mr. Park. Emily's name was there, but so was the condition. Legal recognition as Ha Yoon-mi, direct heir to Ha Myung-sik. If she signed, she wouldn't just inherit money. She would inherit silence, legacy, obligation, and everything that came with it. I won't let him own me, she told Mr. Park. The attorney nodded. Then we move forward, quietly, legally. He filed a preliminary petition in Bizen Family Court, invoking her right to challenge the condition of inheritance under Korea's Article 1112 of the Civil Act. If coercion, manipulation, or exploitation of emotional duress could be proven, the clause could be invalidated. Emily's case was strong. The timing of the will, the sudden inclusion of a hidden descendant, and the leverage of impending death all worked in her favor. Still, she needed evidence, and someone who would speak. That person came in the form of an unexpected ally, her grandfather's former secretary, Mrs. Nam. She met Emily in a cafe near Jagalchi Market, wearing a navy sun hat and gloves, her eyes scanning the street before she sat. I worked for him for over 30 years, she said. I knew about you before your mother did. Emily's breath caught. He kept tabs on you. Paid people to check if you were growing into someone respectable. He always said he might need you. That's not love. That's legacy management. Would you testify? Emily asked. Mrs. Nam stirred her tea. Yes, but not for you. For your mother. She was a girl when he broke her. No one stood for her. Maybe now someone should. The first court hearing was held behind closed doors. No reporters. No whispers. No cameras. Just Emily, Mr. Park, a judge in dark robes, and a file so heavy it felt alive. Ha Myung-sik was not present. He had taken ill that morning, according to the nurse, but Emily didn't need him in the room. She read her statement aloud, voice firm. I do not seek this inheritance out of greed. I seek it because I will not be ridden out of a story I was born into. My mother was silenced. I will not be. The judge asked few questions. Mr. Park presented the affidavit from Mrs. Nam. The court accepted it without objection. The next hearing was scheduled for the following month. Outside, Emily stood on the courthouse steps, spring wind lifting her coat. She didn't smile, but she didn't falter either. It had begun, not just the trial, but her version of the legacy. The night before the final hearing, Emily returned to the Hilltop house. She didn't tell her mother. She didn't tell Mr. Park. She went alone. The housekeeper greeted her without surprise. He's awake, she said, but weaker. Emily stepped through the old wooden halls, barefoot out of instinct. The silence wasn't as heavy now. It felt like the house was exhaling. Her grandfather lay propped against pillows, eyes half closed. The room smelled of herbal salves and cedar. I thought you wouldn't come back, he murmured. I didn't come for you, she said. I came to say goodbye, and to let you know, you didn't win. His mouth curled slightly. You sound like your mother now. Emily didn't flinch. You wanted legacy. You got it, but not the kind you controlled. I'm keeping the name, but not for you, for her, and for me. He blinked slowly. You think names mean anything without history? I do now, because I'm writing the rest of it. She turned to leave. Wait. His voice was dry, fading, but something in it still reached her. You were a child I never held, and a future I never planned for. But I watched, from a distance, always. I know that doesn't fix anything. It doesn't, she said, but thank you for saying it. She walked out without looking back. The next morning, in a quiet courtroom with the windows open to a gray sky, Emily Ha stood before the judge. The final verdict recognized her as a lawful heir. The conditional clause was struck down. Her name Ha Yun Mi was legally restored. When the judge asked if she would accept the inheritance, she said, I will accept what is rightfully mine, and I will use it to repair what was broken. Not money, but story, voice, memory. Outside the courthouse, spring rain had started to fall. Emily tilted her face to the sky, letting it wash over her. She didn't feel burdened. She felt claimed. The girl who once had no name was gone. In her place stood a woman who had chosen hers, Ha Yun Mi, and this time, no one would erase her.